the last 15 years, midfielders kicked the first goal on 10 occasions. So history's a bit against Jezza, but
maybe some of your Hawthorn boys, Adam, might need to focus a little bit more on walking the walk before they talk the talk. The team that wins the qualifying final usually loses the grand final if they meet.
Hello and welcome back to Ahead of the Game Sports Chat with Sports Pez Jez right over in the far corner there, and Tuck's Sports Takes. We also have our main AFL man, Adam Cusworth, here in the middle for this AFL Grand Final preview. Now, before we get into it, just a quick one. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, you need to do it right now. Click on the subscribe button down below. And if you haven't sent any videos from Ahead of the Game to any mates, got to do this one, the AFL Grand Final preview. You got to send it because we're going to have some interesting bold predictions in this one, which you're going to want to see. You're going to want to discuss with your mates at the pub. Now, boys, Jez, Adam, AFL Grand Final preview. The big weeks here, something we've been waiting for all season long. How are the feelings so far, Jez?
Yeah, it's exciting. We were discussing just, 5 minutes ago who we actually think is going to win this game, and it's a brutal one to pick, I think. There's cases for both sides. It's going to be, the build-up's going to be really important. Seeing who steps up is obviously what it's all about, and it's who handles those big moments the better, really. You can't split these two sides. They're both very deserving. I'm pumped. It's going to be an absolute ripper of a grand final, I reckon.
And Adam, you were at both of the prelims over the weekend.
Yeah, both games. My Hawks looked all right the first quarter and a half, but couldn't quite sustain it. And then the Lions too good over Collingwood. I'm pretty pumped for the grand final despite the Hawks not being there. It's heavyweight bout. Hawthorn, Geelong and Brisbane, the only sides that have won 4 premierships since 2000. So the winner of this, I guess their supporters have the bragging rights as to, well, they're the best this century so far. And there's lots of little subplots going on as well. Dangerfield was amazing last week for Geelong. You got players that have missed out in the past that are going to be playing. Game on. Can't wait.
Mate, can you just quickly, before we get into today, where we're going to have some bold predictions, we're going to recap quickly the prelim before diving into the matchup for the big dance. But can you give us a bit of a description of what it felt like to be at the MCG on the weekend? Like, through the TV, the sound was just unreal.
Yeah, it was huge. 99,500 for Hawthorn Geelong. It was off its head. And prelim finals, you don't have as many neutrals there as what you do at the grand final. A lot of sort of once a year, people sort of head to the grand final, but the pure passionate supporters are there on prelim weekend, and it's the loudest. Hawthorn probably had the slight edge in terms of the crowd noise, but that sort of died off, unfortunately, and Collingwood were really, really loud as well. Probably the biggest was, I went to the Richmond GWS prelim in, I think it was 2019 or 2017 to make the grand final. They were coming off a long drought, and that was like pretty much 95,000 Richmond supporters and about 3 Giant supporters there, and it was the loudest it's ever been. So, yeah, atmosphere, unbelievable at prelim. You probably almost make a case that it's better than the grand final, so good to watch.
How cool. All right, boys. Some bold predictions to kick us off this week. What I want you to do is just, I'm going to say who your grand final first goal scorer, your Norm Smith winner, and then anything that you predict could happen in this game, and make it, push the boundaries a little bit. Have a, don't sit in your little box. Give me something interesting, something maybe controversial, and then we can dive into the game a little bit later. So, Jez, first goal scorer, Norm Smith winner, and some outlandish highlights you think could happen.
All right. Well, I've picked one from each side. I think Adam's done the same. Not mucking around. Tyson Stengel, I think, for Geelong as first goal scorer. The easy pick is Cameron, obviously. But I think it's going to come from somewhere else. Brisbane are going to have to lock down Cameron all day. So I think taking someone outside the box a little bit for first goal scorer from Geelong's side. And then I like Cam Rayner for Brisbane. I think he's got to lift early and get himself into the game. When he got himself into the game in the prelim, it changed momentum a lot. So it'd be good to get him started early for Brisbane. So the Geelong backline has to be on the ball. So I like him. I don't know, 2 big-time players, Norm Smith. For Geelong, if Geelong win it, then I like Dangerfield. He was, like Adam said, awesome on the weekend. It's, it could be his last grand final he ever plays in. He's got to step up. He's obviously an absolute game changer. And then I think for Brisbane, Hugh McCluggage, also huge in the prelim. He's got to lift. Lockie Neal was out in the prelim, but he should play this game. But I still think McCluggage is going to have to step up and get his hands on the ball a lot. He was also a difference maker in the prelim. So I like him to just carry that form straight in. And something outlandish and something that's going to happen, I think a big moment we've seen from Will Ashcroft. I think he can sort of break momentum. This whole final is going to be a shift from side to side, and it's who handles these momentum shifts for me that's going to win the grand final. And I think if Geelong are on a tear, Will Ashcroft can come out of nowhere and either put in a massive play. He kicked like another soccer goal from like 40 out in the prelim. It's going to be something like that, something crazy that he's going to do that'll just break some Geelong momentum, and then you'll see Brisbane go on a big run.
Well, lads, you got Jez's top three there. What do you got in your bag of chips?
Yeah, I'm pretty keen on Jeremy Cameron and Zach Bailey for either first goal scorer or Norm Smith. You're onto something though, Jez. I think midfielders have actually kicked the last 15 years. Midfielders kicked the first goal on 10 occasions, so history's a bit against Jezza. But he's kicked 88 for the season. He kicked their first goal for Giants in the 2019 grand final. Kicked their first in the qualifying final against Brisbane. So I reckon Jeremy, he is favourite, but you've got to probably put him in there. Zach Bailey, he's got that X factor. He's that hybrid midfield / half forward. Kicked the Lions. He was on fire 2023 grand final. He kicked there first. He kicked 2 in the first quarter. Kicked one of the better goals you'll see grand final wise. And he was amongst it pretty early against Collingwood last weekend as well. And then Norm Smith as well. Jezza, he sort of threatened to sort of take that game apart in the qualifying final. He was a bit inaccurate, 2 goals, 3. He kicked 4 against the Lions when they lost in round 15. Didn't have many opportunities. That Geelong lost that match. He might get a favourable matchup. Harris Andrews tends to take Shannon Neal, so he might get Darcy Gardner, and he could just explode a little bit. Depends who's going to win though with Geelong and Brisbane. So I think only out of the whole history of the Norm Smith medal, about 45 years, only 4 have come from the losing side. So you've got to sort of, based on who you think's going to win, I'm sort of almost leaning to the Lions. But so Zach Bailey again, he probably fits that profile. He's 20 plus disposals, two goals. He's a great chance to get that. I reckon Hugh McCluggage and Ashcroft, there'll be a bit of attention on them, and Rayner, some of the other Lions game breakers. So Bailey, he's been playing pretty well in the final series so far. Something a bit random that might happen. I reckon there's going to be a lot of momentum swings, but like what Jezza said with Will Ashcroft, I reckon Ollie Dempsey's probably the one that's capable of doing something a bit crazy. He kicked a half volley goal against the Lions in the qualifying final. He might go for a bicycle soccer kick this time. We'll see what happens. And must mention pre-game entertainment. Snoop Dogg, what's going to happen there? He'd possibly be a flop. I don't quite know why I'm saying that. I've got no idea about pop culture, but just want to try and weasel Meatloaf into the conversation. He was 2011. That was terrible. He sounded like he'd been stuck in the MCG wind tunnel since the 1980s. He just didn't want to be there. So I don't think Snoop Dogg's going to be as bad as Meatloaf, but one to watch, I suppose. So see how he goes.
I got a quick question before we go on here to our expert, Mr. Adam. Look, do you think that the Norm Smith medal should ever go to a player from a losing side?
Yeah, 100%. There's been some big performances over the history. Probably Gary Ablett way back in the 80s. It was unbelievable. Kicked 9 goals. That was definitely Norm Smith, worthy. You can have players that sort of bob up and have massive games and keep their sides. And I think, and like the Brownlow as well, you get losing sides quite often get the 3 votes there. So can't see any reason why not.
Happy with that answer,
do you have an opinion? No, I want to know. I want to know your opinion.
No, I don't think so. You can't you can definitely be the best player on the ground in a losing team, but I don't think you should get the award because your team didn't win.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's pretty tough. Like if you're going to be a make or break player in a grand final, I think it's so tough to give the best player on ground because you obviously couldn't be influential enough for your team to win. But I see where you are coming from, that you can, like when it comes to Brownlow and stuff, because sometimes it is there is a better performance from somebody. But that's like individual. I don't know. It's so hard. I'm going to sit on the fence.
It's pretty rare. It probably takes a bit of a superhuman game for that to happen. It hasn't happened much, but yeah, I'm probably leaning towards yes.
And it could be, the difference in a win or a loss could be a 1 point game, and it happened just at the end. So you have a guy that dominates the whole game, and they miss the victory because of a bounce of a ball at the end of the game. You can understand that a little bit more because they could have just as easily won. But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. I think it gives a feeling that you feel like a little bit flat after the award's handed out because you're cheering for your team or the team that's won, and it's like, okay, the feeling around that, and then okay, well, we're going to reward the other team as well. Like, fuck off.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, boys. Prelim finals recap. The subheading here: where to for Hawthorn and Collingwood. Now, Adam, I want to go to you first, mate. As a Hawks supporter, like I don't think you can look at this team and the journey they've done over the past few years and think that it's a disappointing season. I think they overachieved. They started out pretty like not in a hole, but teams had reacted to the way they were playing footy last year and were able to shut them down early. But then they found out a way to start winning again and made a prelim final. Like for me, that's an A+ season.
Yeah, definitely take it. We sort of got worked out a little bit. Like we came from nowhere last year. The whole hot ball craze kicked off, and sides were onto us a bit. We had a bit of a mid-season lapse and a lot of question marks, and did well last parts of the season. And then those two finals wins on the road against GWS and Adelaide were unbelievable. Pretty positive looking ahead towards next year. Obviously, they got smashed in the midfield against Geelong in the clearances and inside 50s as well. And that was sort of a recurring theme during the year, even against weaker sides, getting beaten in the midfield. But really good at either end of the ground. So if they can sort of fix that hole, they could go one or two steps further next year. So happy with your season. Always tough to come so close, but not quite make it. But lots to look forward to.
Jez, the Hawks, let's shift the thought to Geelong instead. They won the game, had 10 more scoring shots than Hawthorn in the prelim final. They outdid the Hawks in the centre clearances 20-5. Do you think this game is an outlier compared to both of these teams' season? Is this domination of centre clearances and inside 50s and scoring opportunities? Is this something that you think Geelong, maybe they were a little bit better in this game and Hawks a little bit worse? Or do you think, hey, this is a real team that's going to go on and win the premiership?
For Geelong, I think definitely this is how they've sort of played the whole year. Like you look at how aggressive they have been and how many points they've put on their opposition, and it's purely because of this. Like they're winning these battles, they're getting the ball inside 50, and then more often than not, they're converting these chances. And I think you look at the games where maybe they didn't play as well, they sort of missed their opportunities, but they were still doing that part of their game the right way. It was more about what was happening maybe with their disposal percentage or their goal kicking accuracy that hurt them. So this is something that they carried in. And then like looking at the Hawks, it was just a maturity thing. I think if you look at where they lost the game, it was 10 minutes leading into halftime, 10 minutes after halftime, where you know that these big sides with a lot of experience, like we said, Geelong are in this sort of dynasty period for them at the moment where they're in their premiership window and the Hawks are coming into their premiership window. So I think you sort of see that's where the game was won and lost. And it's something that the Hawks will learn, and they'll realize that they can build momentum, but they have to finish and start that start the premiership quarter, as they say, the right way instead of falling off and sort of obviously doing that before halftime as well. I think that goes into that same little window there.
Adam,
I think I was just going to jump in. The other thing too with the Hawks, they really got to try and finish top four. You could sort of tell Geelong had the really cushy home and away run. They qualified pretty early, had the 2 lots of weeks off. Hawthorn, lots of travel, had to pretty much win every game. And I reckon fatigue played a really big part. You sort of saw the first quarter and a half what Hawthorn were capable of, but then it just fell in a bit of a hole, and Geelong were just fresh and ran over the top of them. So, yeah, definitely try and qualify, bank those early wins and get in the top 4 next year. It makes a massive difference.
Adam, Paddy Dangerfield has really come alive in this final series. 8 clearances on the weekend, 31 disposals, 3 goals. Do you think they've kind of managed him throughout the season and said, okay, you got to peak at the right time because you're going to be the key guy to another premiership for this club?
Yeah, he's the perfect example of what I was sort of talking about. Sort of played a lot forward this year, not many midfield minutes, but he's been thrown into the centre bounce regularly in the finals. He's sort of saved him up for it, and he's just gone bang, and probably one of the best finals games of all time. Amazing. I think Sam Mitchell set up, Hawthorn's coach, after the game, said he wished Dangerfield would retire soon, so he just absolutely killed us. So it was amazing.
Jez, any other standout performers from this game that you thought?
I don't know. Like, you still got to give kudos to Bailey Smith, don't you? Like, he's the complete package. How many disposals? He had another 36 disposal game. He was in and amongst it, got a little glory goal at the end. But, like, he's everywhere, and he opens up space for everybody else because he draws so much attention. And then, and he obviously makes everybody know about it. He's an absolute mongrel. He's the perfect breed of AFL midfielder or on-baller because he's everywhere, and he talks the talk and then backs it up with what he does. So I think maybe some of your Hawthorn boys, Adam, might need to focus a little bit more on walking the walk before they talk the talk.
Yeah. Like Ginnivan and Nick Watson, the Wiz was pretty quiet. He
didn't have to say it.
Put a spell on himself and disappeared. Anyway, next year.
Stick that in the highlights, Jez.
Yeah.
All right, so the second game of the weekend, Collingwood and Brisbane, was also a fantastic game. Collingwood started strong and they looked great, and then Brisbane came back, and then Collingwood had another run. The Jamie Elliott mark, oh my God. If they can have mark of the year in finals, then that one takes the cake. He was up 7.5 meters in the air. But what we saw towards the end of the game here, Adam, is a Lions team that when they get momentum, it's unstoppable. They're one of the best teams, like I can remember in like the last 15 years, that when they get momentum, the ball's bouncing their way. They didn't even have Lockie Neal on the field.
Yeah, they were so hard to stop. All their breadth of midfielders. McCluggage bounced back from his qualifying final. He just ran still side bottom ragged. Just too much depth through the middle, and that sort of paid dividends in the forward half. And every time there's been a game this year where the Lions have had to step up, they've won. They've dropped games which sort of didn't really mean too much, and they might have dropped 1 or 2 in a row and sort of some question marks on them, and they've rebounded. And every time there's been a big challenge, they've just stepped up, and they've sort of proven that, last year's champions, I reckon they're still possibly the team to beat. So not sure where Collingwood are headed. Their defence has dropped off back half of the year. They closed out the home and away season pretty poorly. That's not a good sign for the next year. I think last year Carlton and Essendon were in the top 4 after round 16, and they just fell off a cliff and took that into next year. So I reckon could be some trouble ahead for the Magpies unless they can do something with their older players and manage that. They've got a stack of old names on the list there, and they need to sort of be creative with how they go through the trade period. But I reckon, they might drop down. Hawks should sort of stay where they are or even go a bit higher.
Jez, to Adam's point there about the defensive drop-off from Collingwood, they still ranked, they were so good defensively in the first half of the first 2/3 of the season that they still rank in rating the best team in the AFL defensively. But there were definitely cracks in that defensive structure, a team that relied so heavily on their defense all season and just could not produce in this game against the Lions.
Yeah, they just couldn't keep up. They had that big momentum swing in the second quarter, and you're like, oh shit, there's a game here. Like Collingwood could steal this, because I think everybody thought Brisbane would just progress, I don't know, in a way because of how Collingwood finished the home and away season. But they just couldn't keep it up, and they couldn't find the solution once Brisbane got momentum, which not a lot of clubs can do. But they just didn't have any answers, and like Adam said, they just got run ragged in the midfield and couldn't bring the ball to ground and win those sort of 50-50 contests, because Brisbane just had too much, and Brisbane could just power. You could see that they had more energy, and I like the point that Adam brings up about Collingwood and their side. They need to be really sort of careful here. Like, they're obviously making the finals, but they've got to start some sort of mini rebuild plan, because all of a sudden you've got this aging roster and then everybody drops off and you haven't developed enough. If they're, switched on, which you would think they should be, start the younger players into the side, get them more minutes so you can have a much simpler and easier transition so they don't end up missing the 8.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's so much to unpack from these teams and their direction in the next kind of couple of years. Adam, what I want to, this could be a little bit of a controversial take, but I think a lot of people feel the same way. Nick Dacos went missing in this game for me, especially towards the end. And the possessions he did have, he created turnovers. And I think about a little bit, we watch a heap of different sport, NRL, AFL, American sports. It's something that I kind of feel a bit of a similarity here, and maybe, Jez, you can speak to this after, but Reece Walsh in the Brisbane Broncos, he's one of the best players in the league, has the skill, the flair, the dynamic ball running, but sometimes can try too hard and it just unravels. And I feel a little bit here that Dacos maybe thought, I have to take control of this game, but then the stuff that he's doing just wasn't making enough of an impact. And it also then went away from the structure that have made Collingwood so good for so long. How do you see his impact in this game? And do you think that they need to continue building around him? Or is it more of okay, we need to set a structure of the team and you need to play to that?
Oh, yeah, I think definitely is. The loss of Pendlebury in the first couple of minutes was massive. I think, Dacos I think he still played an awesome game. He's one of Collingwood's best, but was probably trying to do a bit too much at different stages. Side bottom was down. But look, I think he's the man they're going to build the side around, but they do need to sort of try and find a few younger players, that's for sure. Hard to knock him though. I think he got like high 20s for his disposals. A bit of a tough one, but gun player, champion. He's probably going to go close in the Brownlow medal, which is on tonight, but we'll see what happens there.
And Jez, for Brisbane, I think, there are so many players that stepped up, and something was funny to me is that the commentators spoke about Cam Rayner and that he hadn't had much of an impact in the game, but said this is the kind of guy that could just all of a sudden explode. And within the next 2 minutes, he'd taken a mark and kicked a goal, and then he went on and had an amazing kind of second half. But also guys like Dunkley, Dane Zorko, there's so many guys in this team that just step up a level when they need it. And I felt that they almost outshone the stars of Collingwood.
Yeah, I think, and that's where Brisbane's strength is. They've got so much depth, and it can be they've got their big superstars. They had to win this game without their biggest superstar in Lachie Neale, but other guys step up and fill those holes. And I think if you sort of compare it to how your feelings of Dacos, it feels like Dacos, yes, he needs to be the one that changes momentum, where Brisbane, you can have 3 guys that go up 10%. And instead of sort of one guy that's got to lift 30%, So, yeah, and it is like Cam Rayner, the commentators cop a flack of commentator curse, but they've talked about Rayner at halftime, and then he comes out and had a phenomenal third quarter and shifted momentum for Brisbane. So, yeah, I think that is the biggest thing. Brisbane just have superstars over the whole park, and from game to game, it'll just be who needs to lift in the right area where there's a good matchup, and that's what happens. And that's kudos to Chris Fagan, who can send those messages down and get that type of performance out of different players during a game, which I think is extremely important, because obviously you've got to shift your tactics to what's actually happening on the field, and it feels like that's what happens.
All right, boys, let's get into the decider. Do the Lions go back-to-back, or are Geelong, do they take another premiership and cement themselves as the best team of the last 20 years? Now, we use a site, when we do the game previews for bets.com.au, which they're free every single week over on the site. You're getting your game previews, you're getting stats, insights from guys that follow the league year in, year out, especially this guy right here, Adam. Our AFL mind, but Wheelo ratings is what we use to find some insights, and their predictive modelling has Geelong winning by 20 points. I think the line is 15 if you're looking at betting markets, but the head-to-head, Geelong won the qualifying final. Brisbane won the 2 games earlier in the season. Adam, the ledger is almost square, you could say. It's going to be an exciting game.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, so the Cats, I think, are about $1.50 in the market. Lions around about $2.60. I love the Willow ratings, but probably one thing that you can't really measure is, that experience from last year and what I was talking about before with Brisbane sort of stepping up to the plate when they sort of look like they're a little bit cooked. I think the markets have sort of taken the qualifying final a little bit too much, if that makes sense. Brisbane have won 3 of their past 4 against the Cats. I think the Lions just got to make a few little tactical adjustments and some structural adjustments. And I reckon the line is about 12.5. I'm pretty keen to take that for the Lions. I did tip Geelong to go all the way before the finals series, but starting with a little bit of a U-turn. Just a few little stats. So qualifying finalists past 20 years has been 5 where the qualifying final teams have met again in the grand final, and 4 times the loser has bounced back. And I reckon Tom Stewart is another one. He's a massive out. So just the structural edge that Geelong had in the qualifying final, they had the right matchups. They tagged McLuggage, they tagged Rayner. Stewart's huge, and there's question marks on Henry as well. He bit of a dodgy ankle against the Hawks. So without Stewart this year, including the game he was subbed out, they're 3-3. The Cats haven't performed quite as well without Stewart there. That's just going to throw them out a little bit. Chris Scott, master coach, I'm sure he'll find a way to cover that. But the big thing, I think, with this game, that the Lions didn't quite handle the pressure in the qualifying final. They went a bit too quick at times, pulled the trigger a little bit too early. That caused them some turnovers, and Geelong were able to just run the ball forward and capitalise. So Brisbane have got to handle the heat, and they've probably got to apply more heat than what they did to the Cats in the qualifying final. They didn't put enough pressure on the Cats themselves. So I reckon you're going to expect a lift in this area. And just that little adjustment as to they love going hard, and players like Zorko and Wilmot taking risks through the middle, but just trying to pull the trigger at the right time. So a few little adjustments. I think we're forgetting a little bit that they are the defending champions. They've stepped up to the plate this year. So, they're probably the main reasons why I think the Lions are right in the game, as well as their record against the Cats as well, which going back past the qualifying final. They've been down against the Cats a couple of times, and they've handled those momentum swings and made some great comebacks. Last year's preliminary final was amazing. So I guess the side which can handle those little swings inside the game, they'll be the ones that come out on top. So, Lions definitely are going to push the Cats, and I think it's going to be a lot closer than what the markets are saying.
And Jez, the Lions have an opportunity to add, well, this team of the Lions add their name to the history books. Only 4 teams in the last 35 years have won consecutive grand finals. You go back to the Crows of 97, 98, the Lions team with that three-peat 01, 02, 03. The Hawks, the same thing, 13, 14, 15, and then obviously the Richmond Tigers in 19 and 20. Lachie Neale has said he's going to play if he gets picked. He's been out running. He's been testing the calf. Things are looking good from his angle. He was very reserved in the interview, the post-game interview that they did there. But I think you don't even get to that stage of saying those things if you're not feeling good. Do you think Brisbane have what it takes to withstand Geelong's attack? Are they going to win the game?
I don't know. It's a huge question. It's obviously the question. The attack of Geelong has been absolutely phenomenal all year, and one of the only teams that has been able to shut that down was Brisbane. So if you look at what Brisbane did to them in the matchups that they played against each other, like just bringing up exactly the scores there, and it was, Brisbane held them to 61 points and 51 points. But to put that into perspective, Geelong had their last 16 games, Geelong has scored over 100 points in 13 of those games. And they've scored an average of 120 points in their last 8 games. So, obviously the qualifying final is baked into that, but what Brisbane were able to do in the home and away season was phenomenal. So they have to be able to shut down the scoring of Geelong, and that's the only way that this game they're going to win this game. And they have the experience to do that. I think the biggest thing that everybody is forgetting in this run is, Brisbane have played in the last 2 grand finals. They've been there, and they've not just been this sort of the clear favourite the whole way through. They've had to overcome little battles the whole way through this storyline over the last 3 years. And this is another one. And I think, with Tom Stewart out, that's a big out for them. It allows them to play a little bit sort of more freely down there. And and if they can shut down Jeremy Cameron, I think that's obviously a massive, massive part of it, because even though Cameron didn't explode in the qualifying final, he had a lot of chances. I think they gave up a lot to Cameron, and that sort of made them then give a lot up to his supporting cast. So I think they'll learn from that, and we'll see them be able to shut down Geelong a lot better in this final. So I think they can do it, and it's going to be on the back of how well they play defensively. I don't think they need to keep up with Geelong, because that's the wrong way to go about it.
Adam, do you share Jez's thoughts around the defensive impact? You got guys in that halfback line, and even guys that'll run home to be a part of that defensive structure for the Lions. I think they have some really dynamic guys that could break a game open from their halfback line, and that's the same reason I think they're going to win the game. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, just with what Jez was saying, I think that Geelong's 2 lowest scores for the year were against the Lions. One was a little bit wet early on, but that's funny enough. That's when Geelong scored more of their goals. When it dried up, Geelong dried up with their scoring, and then the second time Geelong were a bit inaccurate. But the 2 lowest scores of the year as well. So just in terms of Brisbane's mids, Brisbane's defenders. Probably the one that I'm a bit worried about is Darcy Gardner. Might have to be the one that plays on Cameron. Anything could happen there, because Harris Andrews is probably the matchup for the big fella, Shannon Neal, down forward. He's played on him a couple of times, so that's probably my only concern. And Geelong's flexibility as well. They seem to sort of almost be prepared for any situation that might arise. They've thrown their players around all season, so they do have a lot of options, sort of the mid and small type forwards. But Brisbane have sort of handled those players pretty well. They didn't in the qualifying final, but I reckon I think the Lions backs match up pretty well. It's just probably Cameron's the only one if he gets away, and depends if Scott plays him further up the ground, sort of what role is he going to play. He's probably the one that I'm, if you're a Lions fan, probably the most worried about. And he's got the score on the board, obviously, this year with 88 goals for the season. So, but yeah, overall, I think they're going to match up pretty close. And those little things, accuracy, how they handle momentum for both sides is going to play such a massive part.
And Adam, while we're there talking about defense, let's flip the script a little bit and talk about Geelong's defense. And we saw the momentum that Brisbane created against Collingwood, and the thing just flowed. So guys were just picking up the ball, they were running, they were hitting their targets. The communication out in the field just looked immaculate because everybody knew where they needed to be, and they were delivering the ball to where it should be. What does Geelong need to do, or are they even able to create a structure or change their game plan if Brisbane get on a roll like they did against Collingwood?
I'm sure they'll find a way. Just with Geelong last week, their backline did look a little bit shaky. They only conceded 40 inside 50s for the game, but Hawthorn scored 20 times, which is a really high percentage. So a few little concerns with Geelong's backline, especially with Stewart out. Henry looked like it was sort of, the turning circle of the Titanic. He couldn't keep up with Gunston. But yeah, I reckon though, Blitzars could be the man that goes back. He will give him a bit of stability if Stanley comes in and plays ruck. So that's one option. And Chris Scott has shown, he's all year that he's got the ability to throw the magnets around. I'm sure that they'll find a way, but it is a little bit iffy, I reckon, after last week. They should have, with the clearance domination and inside 50s they had, it should have been a bigger margin than the 5 goals. So it's going to be an interesting one.
Jez, if you're a Geelong fan, are you worried by those defensive lapses coming up against Brisbane?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to be, because Brisbane have also during the season been a little bit inaccurate when they're like on goal, but Brisbane are able to move the ball forward. And I think if Geelong don't take their chances and Brisbane have one of these momentum runs where they, go in a clean patch of just taking every single opportunity, the game can all of a sudden run away, or Geelong have to change their game plan to adjust to what's happening to what Brisbane are doing. And that's not really where you want to be. And having to chase Brisbane down, I think is going to be extremely difficult. So you hope that they, don't let those chances obviously hurt them. And because it seems like we're raving on about it, but the Lions' momentum is their biggest strength. So you can't let them run away.
And Chris Scott loves to sort of find the most, or who he thinks the most dangerous player is from the opposition. So they had the hard tag on Rayner last time with O'Connor and Mullen on McLuggage, and then last weekend Hawthorn stitched up. Josh Weddle looked really dangerous in the game against Adelaide, and GWS Hill was shut out of the game. So they sort of defend with their matchups, who they perceive is the most dangerous player. So it's worked for them a lot during the year. And I reckon McLuggage and Rayner, there's no reason why they're not going to try and tag those two again. But it might open it up for guys like, Zach Bailey or someone else for the Lions.
And that's like exactly what I've been thinking about, Adam, is that if you look at these two teams and two great coaches and coaching staffs that will be able to, as you say, move the magnets around during the game. But what I see is that Brisbane have more guys on the field that can break a game open, and they can put the team on their back, do some individual brilliant stuff to lead their team to victory. Geelong have a bunch of superstars. They do. And, Jeremy Cameron, Patrick Dangerfield, Bailey Smith. But I don't know if Brisbane do enough to shut down those things. I don't see a bunch of other guys saying, hey, I'm the one to lead us to victory. Am I wrong?
Yeah. I'm thinking Dangerfield and Cameron are jumping out at me big time, and they're probably more.
But let's say outside the top 5 guys on each team. So take away the top 5 for both. The rest of the 17 players, I think Brisbane got more guys that'll break a game open than what Geelong do.
I reckon they do. But people always talk about the bottom 6 players as well. I reckon, I don't know, it's hard to compare. Geelong, because Brisbane have got a few injuries, but they did have, I think it was Gallup that stood up last week with 3 goals. So just looking at the sides, I'll probably have the Lions probably have more game breakers, but Geelong are probably a bit stronger. Their bottom 6 players. It's so hard though. I don't know, to be honest.
I think I'm worried with Geelong, or what I give a little bit of weight into Brisbane is exactly that stat that you threw up earlier of the team that if wins the qualifying final usually loses the grand final if they meet. Worried that Geelong have played all their cards. Like you said, they tagged Rayner and they tagged McCluggage. Now Brisbane have tape on that and know exactly if they're going to do that, all right, this is what we need to do because this is where we fell short in the qualifying final. So I think tactically it's almost an advantage because you can go, okay, well, if they do that, then we can actually do this. So, and then if they try and adjust, then we can go back to our original plan of letting McCluggage and Rayner run wild. So, yeah, I think that is a real advantage where if you've lost that qualifying final game, it's almost easier for you to adjust to the grand final because you can go to your plan B now, but you've got your plan A still because if they cover your plan B, you go back to plan A that's worked for you all season long.
Yeah, it's going to be real interesting too. Like you'd think that Geelong will go the same format that worked, and Brisbane have had time to prepare for that, but I don't know, it's like a game of poker. Maybe Chris Scott might target another player this time. I don't know, but it's going to be interesting how they go tactically. Like the first bounce, watching to see who goes towards McCluggage and who goes to Rayner. See if the same thing happens again. So,
well, boys, it's going to be an exciting week for sure, and we're going to also do a short betting preview over on the bets.com.au YouTube channel. We talk a little bit more. It's going to go quick and hard, but be more around the odds and actual betting stuff. Here it's just the game preview. So we'll put that link in the description as well once that's up, so you can jump over and check that out. Before we leave, boys, I just want to hit straight. Give me a winner, by how much, and then Norm Smith. Bang, bang, bang. I'll go first. Brisbane, McCluggage, 8 points. Ads?
Can I be Switzerland and sit on the fence? No, I reckon Brisbane with the 12.5. But if I had to choose a winner, I'm going to go Lions. And Norm Smith, I'll go Bailey. What was the other one? Was it first goal scorer?
No, like how many points they win by.
How many points? I'll say 10 points.
We can't go the whole board with Brisbane, so I'm going to say and go against everything I've said because I usually speak bullshit anyway, and go, I'm going to take Geelong. I'm going to take them by 32 points, and I'm going to have Patrick Dangerfield as the Norm Smith.
Wow. There you go.
That's how you sit on the fence for real, because 45 minutes I've been talking about Brisbane and then you just change your bet at the end. I'll win both. Smartest man alive.
Perfect. Boys, thanks for today and thanks for a good AFL season. We might, depending if the game throws up some interesting things, maybe we can jump back on and review that. But otherwise, hey, AFL 2026 is not that far away once you start counting down the days. And all of our teams, we're back in with a chance to make it to the grand final. We'll be here again in 1 year talking about that. Anything else, boys, before we round off?
It'll be the year of the Suns next year, won't it?
Hot ball.
We'll see.
Get the whiz.
Send us home, buddy.
All right, hang with us and stay ahead of the game.